Okay, good evening and welcome to our event tonight, which is the Career Strategies for International Students event. And our goal with this event is to talk to you a little bit about some strategies that we think may be helpful as you go through and begin your career search or continue with your career search. And we have a panel lined up for tonight where you'll get some personal tips and advice from students who have um, secured employment, either an intern or a full-time position. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the PowerPoint presentation and walk you through our event a little bit. We'll have a short introduction and then we'll get into some of the main features of what our event are going to be. So to get started, my name is Jason Foster, and I currently serve as the Associate Director of Career Services for Specialty Graduate Programs. And I work with the Business Career Center as part of the SMEAL College of Business. So specifically, I work with all of the one-year residential graduate programs. There's 5 of them right now that I work with. And I also, at the undergraduate and graduate level, work with the international student population. So I'm new to this role. I've only been here, I started remotely in November. I've only been on campus since January, but I do work out of the business building now. And part of my job is to provide programming and support and help in any way possible I can, specifically with the international student population within the School of Business. So that's kind of who I am and what I do. I mentioned this a little bit as we got started, but I have a short, about 15-minute introduction for you all. And then we'll get into the student panel from 5:15 until 6 o'clock roughly. And then from 6 to 7, we'll have a session with the International Student and Scholar Advising. And they'll be speaking with you about some of the issues and concerns that you may have about securing employment in the US. They'll hit a little bit on some of the legal things that you should know about and other topics of interest of that nature. So I do ask that after this event, you help us better serve you. So again, I was hired for a specific job to support you all in any way that I can. But a crucial step in that is that you let us know what exactly it is that you need from me or the other resources that you'll see pop up throughout this presentation tonight. So I'll be sending out a post-event survey. It's pretty short. It should only take you about 5 minutes or so to complete that. And it's pretty much questions like, was this event useful for you? Do you prefer to come to events like this virtually or in person? And then there's a space where you can say, if there are other types of professional development or programming or events that you feel like you need that we're not giving to you at this point, put all of your ideas in that text box, because if you don't let us know, we can't help you. But if you do let us know what you need, we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we support you in the ways that are needed. So again, probably just like 5 or 6 minutes. All of them are multiple choice questions, except that one where we ask you for ideas of how we can help you moving forward. A quick shout out to our event sponsors. So again, I'm representing the College of Business. You'll hear from the International Students and Scholar Advising Department later. We have panelists from across 4 different colleges, and then you see the list there of the others who help and support us as we put on events such as this. So we try to make it a campus-wide effort across multiple colleges and not just coming from one source with one voice. So kind of diving into the meat of this a little bit more then, securing employment, right? That's why we're all here. That's sort of what we're focusing on with tonight's session specifically. You already know there's obstacles to securing employment. And the thing that I can recommend most, as you look at those obstacles, you start making lists of the steps you need to take. You start thinking about your resumes or cover letters or interviewing and things like that. is to use your resources. So there's so many resources available to you. I have kind of four of the big ones here listed on the slide. If you're part of the College of Business, the website you see listed there is for our Business Career Center, which is where I work. If you're not part of the College of Business, you have resources within your colleges, but then the big one is PSU Career Services that's available to any student at Penn State University. Um, Touching again on the international students and scholars advising, they provide a multitude of resources as well. You see their website listed there. And then English for Professional Purposes Intercultural Center, referred to as EPIC. Again, their website is listed there, and they can help you out with professional English writing, conversational English, if you need help with your resume and cover letter and helping those be written in a more professional manner, anything that has to do with sort of that English language preparation and transition, Epic's there to help you out with that. So make sure you take a look at that website if you haven't yet done so, or if you weren't aware of the services that they provide. And then the next big step as you're using your resources, right, is to research and work to understand the things that will help you secure employment. So we're going to touch on each of these four areas just a little bit. U.S. business culture, communication styles and other cultural norms that you might expect or look at, U.S. recruiting practices, and then development of professional English skills. So again, for this presentation and session, we're focusing on what it is you need to do to secure employment. And we're going to hear about those experiences, and we're going to talk about some of those legal issues. These four topics right here, I'm going to touch on them just a little bit to give you just a taste of some of the things that you should be considering. But if there's anything in here that you're like, oh man, I would really like to know more about that, or I wish there was a session just on US business culture, those are the things that you can tell me in the survey when you take that. But those are also things that you should be reaching out to the career centers and saying, hey, I'm trying to get a job in the US, but I really don't understand business culture. Can you help me with that? Or I'm getting ready to apply for jobs, but my resume is nowhere near ready. Can you help me with my resume? Again, that's what we were here for. You just need to connect with us and let us know what you need so we can provide those services. So quick overviews again on these. US business culture. You've maybe heard some of these things. You may not be aware of some of these things, but business culture in the US typically expects quick results. There's schedules and deadlines that are often extremely important to the way business is done. Businesses are usually action oriented and focused on the bottom line, whether this is monetary or just the outcome of a specific project or a program that's happening. We tend to focus on results in the US when it comes to business. Work often overlaps with part of your identity. So if you ever hear, if you ask someone, who are you? In the US, you're probably going to get an answer that starts with, so if someone was to ask me who I am, a big part of that answer is probably going to start or be, I'm associate director with career services at Penn State. Who we are overlaps a lot with what we do for a living. So keep that in mind as you're talking to people. Going back to the quick results and bottom line oriented, time is money. And this connects really well with the next bullet point as well. On time for appointments often means at least 5 minutes early. You're there, you're ready to go before the meeting actually starts. And then risk taking is often valued in the US. You've maybe heard the statement, high risk, high reward. That's because we value taking risks to get a positive outcome. Communication styles and cultural norms you can expect as far as business culture and professional culture. We usually like to smile, right, and start and show that we're interested in being there, that we're excited to be there. It makes you seem more personable and approachable. The arm's length of personal space. So I know this isn't the case in all culture. The communication and conversations happen standing much more closely. But here we tend to like our personal space for whatever reason. So if you're thinking about a good rule for that, it's usually the the arm distance away is a good rule of thumb there. Eye contact's really important for a multitude of reasons to show that you're engaged. Again, that you're interested in being there, you're listening to what the person has to say, but it also expresses confidence in yourself and what you're saying. If you're kind of looking away, right, and looking around the room, it makes you seem like maybe you're not confident in what's happening and what's going on right there in that time. So eye contact is extremely important. Be aware of greetings and closings, how you address people, Mr., Mrs., Doctor, right, appropriate to whatever the situation may be. A handshake is pretty common. I know the pandemic has kind of thrown that off a little bit. You may see a fist bump or an elbow bump or maybe nothing at all, but traditionally a handshake at the beginning of a meeting and at the end of the meeting, but not much other forms of contact in the business world here. And then direct communication, again, connecting back to the time is money, let's get to results, is kind of like a don't dance around scenarios. Tell me what you want, tell me why you're interested in working here type of things, right? Speak very directly about what it is that you're trying to get at. The recruiting practices in the US. So if you're looking for jobs right now, this is extremely important to you. Think of yourself as a seller. In the US, job candidates are the seller in the transaction. So you need to sell yourself to the employer. What is it that makes you a good candidate? Again, you need to be confident. You need to talk about yourself. You really need to highlight your skills. And there are resources on our website that helps you with perfecting that 90-second elevator pitch that really helps you sell yourself to those employers. Networking is important, and it's important to remember that networking is a two-way street. It's not just asking for a job, right? It's building relationships up over time. Your initial screenings are typically going to look at cultural fit as far as, are you a good fit within a certain team or within that organization. So it's not the initial screenings aren't all about your technical skills. It's about how you fit as an individual within that setting. Be able to explain your experience and how it applies to the job. So most of us can probably go through our resume and talk about the experiences we have, but why is that applicable for the job that you're applying for? So you need to be able to make that connection. And then US businesses look for well-rounded candidates. So be prepared to talk about your academic background, your leadership experience, your technical skills, as well as being able to demonstrate how your personality fits into that setting. And then your professional English skills are extremely important. I talked about EPIC earlier, the English for Professional Purposes Intercultural Center. Their website was on that slide, but how can you practice your English skills outside of using the EPIC resources? You can create and practice presentations as you're giving presentations for classes. Use that as an opportunity to practice some of these skills. Practice answers ahead of time to interview questions. You can do that on your own. You can do that with a friend, or you can reach out to the career services. That's one of the things we do. We can go through mock interviews with you and help you practice those answers so you're prepared and ready to go. Interact with English-speaking individuals as often as you're able to. Immerse yourself into local culture. And then if you haven't yet done so, get involved with student organizations. It's just a great setting to interact on a more social or casual basis and take some of that pressure off a little bit. And then the other thing I can emphasize right away is to start now with these things, right? Don't wait until you're applying, or don't wait until summer or whatever it might be. Start now with researching and preparing. Identify important dates. And I don't just mean dates for when job positions may close or things like that, but also dates of when are professional development opportunities, when are career fairs. Look on our websites for all of those important dates for upcoming events, resume sessions, all of that type of stuff. Make sure your resume and your cover letter are ready to go now, again, use the career services available to you if you need help with your resume and cover letter. I can't emphasize enough that that's why we're here and that's what we do. Look into mock interviews or ask us for some samples of questions that you may get in those interviews. Start networking now. LinkedIn is a great way to start. Again, building those relationships over time. It's not just asking for a job. And don't limit yourself. And a couple things by this, I mean, don't limit yourself by only looking on LinkedIn or only looking on Nittany Lion Careers, making sure you're using all of the resources and job boards and things that are out there. And don't limit yourself by not applying for a job because you think you may not get it. I always kind of say, if you apply for a job and you get an offer, you can always say no later if it's not the right fit. But if you don't apply for a job, you can never accept it. You can't accept a job that you don't apply for. So don't limit yourself, kind of cast a wide net at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give me just a second. I'm going to pin our panelists to the screen so we can see them. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, and if our panelists can all turn on your video if you're able to, and your microphones if you're able to, or when you're speaking, at least remember to click yourself off mute. And as you can see, I promised a diverse perspective from our students tonight. So you can see we have the College of Science, Information Sciences and Technology, Liberal Arts, and the College of Business all represented on our panel. And even if you're not in one of those colleges, I'm confident that their experiences are going to relate well to what you have going on as you kind of think about getting ready for an internship or maybe your first professional job. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask them to each one by one briefly introduce themselves, share a little bit about their background, and then just tell you real quickly about some of their experience with securing what they have so far for employment. So we don't have a specific order set up. So let's start with Liam maybe, and then we'll jump in one by one after that.
Sure, thanks. Thank you, Professor Foster. And a little bit about myself is my name is Liam Zhou, and I graduated my undergraduate degree at Penn State in Information Science and Technology with a concentration in software design and development. Then I pursued my master's degrees in business analytics in the College of Business at Penn State as well. I am working as an advisory associate for KPMG in risk assurance practice in the Portland, Oregon office right now. So that's me. Thank you.
I could go next. Jason?
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarthak Vij. I'm a senior majoring in econ and math. And over the past, given that I'm a senior, I'm about to graduate and move to Chicago to work in a consulting firm. Yeah, so all these experiences combined, I have a lot to share, exactly how I got it and what are the processes involved, how to network and things like that. So please feel free to ask me questions. Thank you.
I can go next. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hey team, my name is Amit. I'm from India. Here I am pursuing MBA in finance and supply chain. It's a 2-year program that I'm pursuing, and a little bit on my background. I have 11 years of experience, 6 years with the Navy and in Coast Guard, and 4 years here and there in sales and marketing. So that's about me. Thank you so much.
All right, I guess I'll go next. My name is Ayo Gurumbi, and I'm a recent grad. Actually, I graduated December last year, and I'm currently working for New York Life. Oh, wait, my major first. I studied actuarial statistics with minors in economics and applied mathematics, and now I am working for New York Life Insurance in New York City. So yeah, I am looking forward to sharing about my experience securing employment and answering any questions you guys have. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So as we go through this, you can feel free to type in answers into the question and answer box. We do have some questions prepared ahead of time that our panelists will answer for us. So we gave them a chance to kind of prepare a little bit so we could provide the best answers possible. But again, if we have time, we're happy to answer any on the spot questions you may have for each of these questions. If all four of you feel like you have something valuable to add, please share those experiences. We may only have one or two answers for a question as well. That's perfectly fine as well. So we'll go to the first question here. What do you feel was the most important and beneficial step you took during your employment search?
I can go with this one first. So I think, well, like Professor Foster was mentioned before, right? So communication is a key, to build network, and especially for the self pitch, and also during the process of interview, how to make yourself stand out. I think everything was connected. So I would say my approach was first to always to make my resume looks better and better every single year, and secondly, always prepare individual pitch to different companies so they know I'm prepared, I did my research, and I'm interested in their company, so they don't feel I'm wasting their time or I'm just looking for something.
Just to add on to that, one of the key parts of the entire process was networking. Fun fact, so the company that I now got an offer from, I applied to them about 3 times, 2 times for an internship and 1 time for a full-time job. They rejected me twice for a part internship, and they finally gave it to me when they got fed up of me and seeing my resume in their inboxes every now and then. So the key was networking. During the entire time, remember one thing: if you need a job, they also need you at some point or the other. You employers and employees both work hand in hand, and until you make them feel that you would be a completely great add-on to their company, and you make them feel that in the application process itself, that's where you really unlock the door to really get into that company and sit in very well, especially in the application process.
I can pitch in. For me, I interned with Amazon in their pathways operations side. So it's the fulfillment side of the Amazon business. I interned in 2021 for 3 months, and now I'm going back for my full time at Amazon as well. For me, as Jason mentioned in one of his slides, that it's also about understanding the culture, which is so different in the countries that you're coming from, and what actually happens in US. So it's kind of a change of understanding as well. For me, getting through the Amazon process, some of the things that I remember is understanding the culture at Amazon. That was important because it was in a way similar to my military experience as well, but a lot of things were different. Say, back in India, I was handling, or a lot of you must have worked with people. So the teams are different. Like here, I was handling a lot of Hispanic and US people. So that was a new thing for me. Working hard is important. Delivering on your timelines is important, especially for those of you who are planning to attend the business school. You are eyeing the mid level or senior level leaderships in years to come. So from United States perspective, right from the classrooms here at SMEAL to my internship experience talking to the employers, one thing that I really noticed is there's a huge value on time, delivering on commitments. So all those software aspects are very important to understand to fit into the US culture well. Thank you.
I could also say a few words. So I think for me, I partnered myself with many organizations that I knew would, be able to give me opportunity. Well, not give me opportunities, but I guess present opportunities to me. For example, when I first got to the States, I joined the International Associations of Black Actuaries, which is, a group of people that have already made it in the, industry and have jobs and stuff. And that was for one, a very good networking opportunity. And two, they were able to help me develop. They were able to show me, what I would need to do to get a job. And I was able to make real personal relationships with people who genuinely cared about me getting a job after, I graduated. So that really helped me a lot. And even within Penn State, I joined the Actuarial Science Club, where they were constantly sending emails with job opportunities and, resume, places where you could go and get your resume checked and mock interviews and things like that. So definitely not trying to do this on my own and joining and partnering with organizations that are, focused on, helping people in this, with the situation was a very, very important step that I took. So I really do hope that many of you do that as well. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for those answers. Are there mistakes you made during your search for employment that you would caution others about?
A lot. I'm sure the panel has a lot of answers to that. Go ahead, Sarthak.
One of the main, I mean, I guess you could figure that out with my smile over there. But one of the biggest mistakes that I made was not really looking at what the company is there to offer me. So something that I said earlier, it's a partnership. If you need the company needs you. Understanding what's a good fit, because if you're not a good fit, the company knows that you're not going to be a good fit and you're not going to stay in the company for long term. So in my application process, I would often apply to companies that barely or 10% or 20% job match the job description that's there. And I'd expect them to respond to my application and I'd wait for them to respond to something. But as it is, they did not respond. So apply to what you feel that you're really passionate about, understand what your interests are, and then make your application accordingly. Because that vigor and that willingness to apply in a company is seen through your application. It's really crystal clear for them. So apply it to companies and places where you're really passionate about the product or the services that they offer.
I think one of those mistakes I have made during the process of finding the job, I can give you a very funny, it was a little bit embarrassing example was, I chat with this lady from this company called RSM doing the mega fair, one of the career fairs. Then I decided to follow up with her, but then I made a mistake. I accidentally typed her name wrong. I remember it was a Katie, then I just misspelled C with a K. Well, I don't know. He still emailed me back. I was so surprised. I was like, oh, if I'm this person, I probably will like really email you back. Second thing I would say, sometimes I thought I was a little bit overconfident. I thought I'm prepared for this kind of interview questions, but they slightly changed it just a little bit. For example, like, oh, why do you think you're a good consultant? I mean, I have the answer for that ready, but then they can change a little bit. Say, oh, why do you think you can be a good consultant for our company? And that's just a completely different question. And I remember there a couple of times I was not really ready. I used one answer for multiple questions, but after all, I knew that that was not good enough.
I have one. It's not like a big major mistake, but it really made a difference. So it wasn't, I wasn't the one who made the mistake. My friend actually told me about it, and she had interviewed with a company and she didn't hear back from them for many weeks. And later she just decided to check her spam junk, the part of her mail. And she went there and saw that they had actually reached back, they had reached out to her to basically give her the position and she hadn't seen it. So, I would say just check all, everywhere in your email and make sure that you're not missing any type of, correspondence from the company, because that's a very stupid mistake that, cost her a lot. So that's one. And some mistakes I've made is, as Liam said, genuinely not being prepared for my interviews, not researching the company well enough, or even the interviewer well enough before the interview to know, how I should, structure my answers so that they're pattern towards the company. So I would really make sure you do all your research before interviews. Make sure that you know every little thing about the company, what their plans are, what they're going to do in the future, what happened in the past, everything about the company to show that you're interested and you genuinely care about the company. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
I can pitch in.
ahead.
Jason, do we have time?
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead.
My experience, specifically from the business school perspective, is that I came in, first of all, India has a different recruitment cycles and stuff. So for all of the people who have an experience of going through a different employment cycle in the colleges or schools that you have studied, my strong suggestion would be to understand the US colleges cycle of employment. That's one. Second, say I came from an operations side, but initially it was a pandemic situation. So there was a lot of rush into career fairs and internships. So I started applying to, from my own perspective, absurd companies such as healthcare and banking. I understand some of you might be from that area of expertise, but it was just, I was an operations guy. I was applying to banks and to healthcare. Then as things unfolded, as I got more into the groove of understanding what am I doing here, it became more and more clear that some organizations' core values, their way of work, that more aligned to what I've been doing and what I believe as a person. So my suggestion to you on that front, what I learned from my mistakes is that you have to give it some time for the picture to be more clear as to what aligns with your personal values, what companies you would like to work with. So it's sort of it's not a cookie cutter strategy where everything works for everybody. So you'll have to figure your way out, and that will take some time. Thank you.
I see a lot of questions popping up about OPT and specific to internships and eligibility and things like that. And this is kind of why we do the panel first, actually, because we expect those sort of questions to arise as we're talking about it. But just know that is kind of what the 6 to 7 p.m. block of our session tonight is primarily going to focus on, is some of those questions about eligibility and CPT versus OPT. So we may not get to all of those during the panel, but we will certainly answer those type of questions in the last hour of the session. Who did you reach out to for support and assistance during your search for employment, and in what ways did they help you?
I'm sorry, Liam. Oh, okay.
It's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I am part of the International Associations for Black Actuaries, and in there were a lot of people, members of the organization that work for New York Life, actually. So before my interview, and when I found out that I had an opportunity from New York Life, I reached out to those people because they're in the company, so they know a lot about the culture, and they were able to give me a lot of valuable information before my interview. So I would suggest, trying to reach out to someone who you may know that works for that specific company, because many people are willing to help in that way, and it really did help me. So, yeah.
I would say, well, Penn State has so many career services, even down to different majors. IST, it has its own, and especially SMEAL. SMEAL has a very strong career services. I remember the lady was called, her name was Ashley Rapid, and she was my seminar professor, and she helped me with my first resume and helped me prepare some interview questions, give me like a paper, like how to prepare those interview questions. Yeah, well, Penn State has a lot of resources, and it's just a matter of a way, how do we utilize those?
Thank you so much. So I had a chain of or a network of mentors that I was associated with throughout my undergraduate degree. Um, and I knew when and how to activate them at different times. So, for example, I had Susan Nell in the Career Enrichment Network in the College of Liberal Arts in the Career Services building. Then I had a few professors that I'd worked with who had more knowledge about the professional side of things in the US. Then I had a few mentors outside who worked in HR. So in my sophomore year, I had got an internship, but it was canceled due to COVID-19. But I made sure that that HR contact remained a good connection of mine. So I'd keep them in touch. Um, and so I had a network of mentors that I'd use. And then every now and then I'd reach out to just blindly text people on LinkedIn that, hey, we share the same alma mater. Is there a way that you could help me out? And by doing so in some way or the other, I landed the right spot. And that's how they gave me a referral, swooped in a job accordingly.
All right, thank you. Next question, and some of this may be a little bit of overlap, but are there specific resources online or otherwise that you would recommend to students currently engaged in the employment search process? Maybe just things that we haven't hit on yet that you would recommend?
One of the primary things that I would recommend, thank you for the question. One of the primary things that I would recommend is using this service or this application called Blind, Blind. It's not a very popular app, but a lot of people use it. It's an app that will help you understand the culture of the work culture of US. It's like LinkedIn merged with Quora. So there are people that talk about how much money you should be making, at what level, what salary to expect, interview questions, how to respond with something. It's a professional networking platform, but basically anonymous. And I'll type in the name of the app in the chat, but download the app and use it. It's an extremely helpful app because when you one day get that offer, which says your base is X amount, your RSU is X amount, and your signing bonuses are Y amount. What does it? How do you really understand what's X and what's Y? The best way to do it is through people's experiences who have done it before you, and that's an app that really helps you out with the process.
Well, I apply through LinkedIn. Mainly, I just looked up Fortune 500 companies and go to every single one, not like everyone, but just the one I'm interested. Went to their website and see what positions they're currently hiring and what kind of skills they're looking for. And that's it. Nothing really special about this one.
I can pitch in on that one. From my perspective, I would say the internal and external tools, some of them are interviewing with career services. That was something that I really benefited from. Other is there's a discrete method for cracking interviews, which is the STAR method. Personally, for me, it really helped. It is situation, action, situation, task, action, and result. So what I was doing for a long time, almost 1.5 months during my internship preparation process, was to blab in front of the interviewer on questions that they were asking, and answer from the emotional side, the emotional front. That usually happened with a lot of my friends as well. So that's one thing that to be very of. How you can transform is through the STAR method approach, where you write those 11 or 12 life occurrences which you strongly relate to, and then they in turn relate to the principles which these companies ask predominantly in their behavioral interviews, right? So it can be, I would say, not cracked, but it can be understood what the organizations are asking and what kind of a person they are looking for in that short span of 40 minutes, three interviews, which is not even 2 hours of assessing a candidate. That was one career services, my strong suggestion to people usually is to get into the zone of interviewing with friends faster. I have seen that people around me who were not interviewing or giving mock interviews to their friends or to career services got a little delayed in their prep and cracking interviews. So the sooner you can get into that groove, you can systematically understand what the person is asking and how you can do it. Third and last, I would say, don't lie on resumes. A lot of people do it to boast on things, and it is understandable if you manipulate things to show certain things in higher light or greater spirit. But generally, it will not do you good because it takes a lot of the brain space when you are actually interviewing 3 times in a day. So keep it simple, silly is my suggestion towards the end. Thank you.
So we received some good advice about not lying on the resume. Thank you for that. That's absolutely. What are some tips that you would provide to others about their resume? Specifically, is there anything that seemed to work well for you when you added it? And it's not all about adding things. Sometimes we remove things and we seem to get a better response. Is there anything that you would suggest in that realm?
Yeah, sure. I can provide some insights to this one. So last week I was helping KPMG doing Penn State campus recruiting, and this is something I realized because a lot of people put down in their skill as a communication, like mainly communication. I think that is something we should have. It's not as like really something you should put on your resume, like, oh, I have communication skill, right? And I would say something was important is those few things we are looking for. First, involved with organizations. Second, well, some people are looking for internship, they probably don't have a lot of work experience. You can share some of group projects you have done at Penn State as well. And I would say if you have a good GPA, that's very important. You put it on the very top. And yeah.
I can pitch in on that. My understanding is that for people like me who have some experience, the thumb rule, what Brenda, the career services team told me is as a thumb rule that if you have experience more than 5 years, it goes up, and then if you're not pursuing a degree, then the experience goes first, and then you can take the education down. But if you are already enrolled in a program, like a lot of us are, then the education goes up, and you can put the experience down. So that's kind of the thumb rule what we follow at business school.
I have 2 things to say. So number one, I would advise, so for the technical skills portion, I would advise that you kind of like mention how advanced you are in each of those programs that you might put on there. Because if you just put, oh, okay, C++, SQL, all those things, and you don't say, okay, I've just had exposure to this, I'm a little bit more advanced in this during the interview, it's fair game. And they could ask you like really in-depth questions about SQL, and all you've had is exposure to it. So that could really, affect your interview. So I would like suggest to be really like detailed about how advanced you are in the different, computer programs that you've mentioned in your resume. And then number 2, I would say try and like make your resume very specific to the job you're applying for. So if like you maybe interned at a hospital, many years ago, don't put that in if you're applying for an insurance firm. Like it's not related at all. So try to make sure that what you're putting on your resume, especially for the specific jobs, is related to that job, so that they know that, okay, she has experience in this field, And then those other things, it can maybe, if you have space on your resume, you can maybe put them towards the end. And I think you should always try and put like your work experience first. I've heard a lot of different things when it comes to resume, but your work experience should always come, education and then work experience, and then maybe all these organizations and other things towards the end. So, yeah.
And our next question, what are some basic strategies you used while interviewing that seemed to work well for you?
Well, thank you for the question. The main and the key strategy would be to prepare well, and to prepare well based on who's interviewing you. For example, I had during my first round of interview, and the same guy stayed from round one to round two to round three. There was a gentleman who was from Indiana University who was interviewing me, and the weekend after the interview was Penn State was an Indiana game last semester. And so at the end of the interview, I would jokingly say, um, if Penn State wins against Indiana, please do not let it affect my interview. And and that joke carried on until the very last round. Now it's obvious that he's not going to affect a game that's there on the football field, going to affect my application process. But it's a silly joke that you could crack. The main part was that I understood who my interviewer was, and that gave them an indication that, oh, this person has done some amount of research and is not taking the interview lightly. And then when Penn State won against Indiana, and during the second round, I was like, hey Nick, I was not expecting to be here, but glad I am. And so that allowed me to break the ice and get through with the process really quickly.
I would advise having really good questions to ask after the interview. I never used to take that seriously. Well, when I was like first interviewing, I didn't know how important those questions are. So if they ask you, do you have any questions for us? And you say, no, I don't, that looks really bad. So and this is also where you can, the questions part is where you can show the research you've done on the company, because you could ask something about a project that you've heard they're working on or stuff like that. So that really helps a lot. You can really use the question portion of your interview to kind of sell yourself and sell how interested you are in the company. So don't take that part lightly.
This is something I want to share. I think was quite important for me to learn. That I learned during the process of preparing those interviews. So we can talk about all our experiences, right, through the time at Penn State, organizations, group projects, and but the key thing in order for us to successfully answer a question is how do you connect back to the company? Like, yeah, you're doing great, you have this experience, and you can by the end you can add a one sentence like, with my past experience, I was successful at this event or this organization to be the president of this event, and I'm confident I can successfully transition my experience, my expertise into my future role at this company. Stuff like that, I think, was very important to connect during the end of each question.
I can pitch in. During interview, that time, usually what I've heard from my friends, a lot of them is that it's usually a 3 interview, 45-minute each process. That's something that I found very usual, at least at the business school level. So my understanding of that is specifically for people, since this is an international forum, is to get a good hang of thinking in English. That's something that I struggled with for some time. I saw a lot of my colleagues struggle with it. So because when you're preparing for the interview and when you are actually out there the first couple of times, when it's a hit or a miss, a lot of us don't get those offers. So when we come back and think, a lot of it is also because we got very skeptical, or like it was we were not calm, and that shows very clearly to the interviewer. So a good way to hack that is to get, as Jason suggested earlier, to get into the student organizations, get those stages to actually speak and express, and slowly and gradually develop that process of thinking in English. That really helps driving answers, and as Sarthak mentioned, putting out those quick wits, which are not otherwise possible for a lot of people. Like, it was not for me for a long time. And so this is something that I would want to include. Thank you.
I had a couple questions in the question and answer box. I'd also like to address live a little bit. I did type answers, but someone had asked, what do you do if you don't get the internship or the job to better prepare or make yourself, sort of more sellable for the next time? And my answer is, if you're looking for a summer internship and you don't get one, the best thing you can do is still try to get some type of experience. If you don't secure an internship, maybe that's not in the US, maybe you're back home for the summer or something like that. But any type of experience, job experience that you can get to add to your resume is going to be beneficial. Student organization involvement also is huge, because then, especially if you can get into a leadership role like a vice president or a social committee chair or something like that, or even volunteer experience. A lot of people forget about volunteer experience, but a lot of times as volunteers, there might be events where you're just helping sort of set up for an event or something like that. But other volunteer experiences, you're going to handle cash, you're going to help with organization and logistics. All that stuff looks great on your resume. And then the other one, and then on that as well, preparation with the Career Center, getting your resume, your cover letters up to date, doing those mock interviews, right? Attending those career fairs, working on your networking, all of those are going to be huge to help you set up for success for that next time. Next question.
I can pitch in on that one, Jason. A really important point you made. At the same time, I would like to pitch in that the company which rejected you, it's a good and polite practice to ask for a feedback from them. That helps a lot in understanding where you fail, because it's a series of 10 or 15 or 20 interviews before you come out and say, I don't have an internship now, what should I do, right? So it's very important to ask for feedback from that particular company, get in touch at least for 5 minutes on email or on Zoom, whatever, to understand what went wrong. It first shows you in good light, and it creates a long lasting relationship. And second, it helps you preparing for future interviews.
Yes, thank you for adding that in. The other question was, what type of questions should you ask at the end of an interview? And my general advice is, you want to learn more about the job and the position, what your specific responsibilities are going to be. You want to learn about the organization, the culture. If it's a professional position, you might want to learn about how they support additional education or professional development opportunities. Do they send you to conferences and workshops and things like that, right? So you should be trying to learn more about, when you're asking questions, you should be trying to learn more about, is it a good fit for you, and things like that. What you don't want to do is ask questions that you can find the answer to on your own, right? So I said you want to learn more about the job, but you don't want to ask about things that are maybe already in the job description unless you want to expand on those. You probably don't want to ask like, what's your mission or what do you do here, right? You should know those sort of things ahead of time. So that's a little bit of advice there. Our next question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In my opinion, a good question towards the end, also in line to what you mentioned, is to ask if, say, if in terms of Amazon, I'm talking to Amazon, I can ask about some specific problems that they're facing right now. Not in a demeaning way, but in a good researcher way, that you have researched enough on that particular topic that shows that you're serious. Say, in my case, I asked my interviewers, out of the 5 rounds that I had, 3 of them were veterans, so I kind of hit that good luck. We shared that good rapport, but I asked him specifically that I'm interested in the drone program that Amazon is carrying out in the Oak regions of California. I have a small time drone license, so how can I see that fit? So that shows in a lot of way your geographical research, and that speaks volumes in my opinion, as to a person is not speaking for the heck of it or asking that question for the heck of it, but he wants to like complete a puzzle that can only be answered by me just because I'm in that position.
Thank you. So I have a question on the slide and a question in the Q&A. that are related, so we'll sort of combine the two. So the question on the slide, what were some unanticipated setbacks during your employment search that you wish you would have planned for ahead of time? And in the Q&A box, we have obstacles were mentioned earlier in the slide, so I'm curious to get some further insight from the panel on what obstacles we should expect to face. Are they individual or growth level? I believe the panelists can see the questions there, right? So is there anything that you should prepare for, and how did you navigate either from the slide, the setbacks, or in the Q&A box, these obstacles that came up?
I could take that. One of the key parts is rejection. As someone said earlier, if you get rejected, take it gracefully and ask them for a reasoning. And so, for example, something that happened with me was that in 2019, I got an internship with PPG in Pittsburgh. 19 hit, and then everything was pulled out. And even though the internship program went ahead with a certain number of people, I wasn't a part of it. And I could have very easily thrown tantrums and been very upset and angry about it. But instead, I turned that setback into an opportunity and talked to them about, hey, you know what? I'm still interested. You found me capable enough for an internship. Maybe if you have an opportunity in the future, so be it. But I would love to have you include me in that entire conversation realm, so that in the future, if something happens, they could vouch for me. So what I got out of that process was that I got a mentor out of it. And that mentor still sticks around with me all the time. When I got my offer from Patstone Partners, the company that I'll be working for, I reached out to him. He's a part of the HR team at PPG. And I talked to him about it, that this is the offer that I'm getting. This is the pay. Is it good enough? Given that these people have a lot of industry experience, take the learnings from them, even after you're rejected. Make those setbacks an opportunity for you and explore them as much as possible.
I think I could say something on this next question that's on the screen. I think that once you get an, except for the unique situation that did happen during COVID, but once you get an internship with the company, there's a very, very, very high chance you'll get the full-time position. So working on getting internships, because what I didn't know that it would be that easy to get my full-time position just because I entered with the company, but it was literally like, okay, you have an internship. It was almost 100% guaranteed that I would be hired full-time. So that went a lot smoother than I thought it would. So focusing on getting internships and, basically getting into the door, yeah, you'll probably 100%, well, 99% get the full-time position. So that's one thing I can say on this question. Yeah.
I can pitch in as well. I believe in Woody Allen's quote that 80% of the success is in showing up, right? That is valid in this as well. My personal experience, people told me, I think business school is a more serious school. We have more fun schools at Penn State, but I only know about business school. So here we have this philosophy of filling 100 applications or 70 applications, and then like your luck turns around, because by doing that process, you become clear of which 2 or 3 or 5 companies you actually really want to go to, and things become easy after that. So to answer this question as to what aspects became better, I would say as I figured out the kind of organizations I want to work with and prepared myself for the interviews and the questions, it was a smooth sailing after internship completed and turned into a full-time offer. Thank you.
Thank you for those. I kind of like to work that one in towards the end after we talk about, the struggles and the challenges, to throw in a little bit of that positive, what went well for you. And then the last question, we are almost out of time for our panel. So if you could just each maybe 1 or 2 sentences apiece, quickly tell us, is there any other information or maybe just a piece of advice you would leave to the students that are listening in tonight?
I would say, it's well, as we all international students, we all had the same struggle, but well, we all have to work hard. You work towards your final goal, whether have a good GPA to reach a high position in your organizations or find a good job. Just don't give up. I know the situation is tough, especially in pandemic, but you see like 4 of us have done it, and that means what you can do it too. So just do your best.
My word of advice would be quality applications are much better than quantity of applications. Make sure you network before applying to every job that you are applying for, be it through cold messaging on LinkedIn or any way or the other. If you're applying to 10 jobs a day, but randomly pushing buttons on LinkedIn, it wouldn't be as helpful as applying for one concrete job, but taking a referral out of some employee via LinkedIn or some other platform and networking your way to it. So yes, that's about it from me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just like Liam said, don't give up. It gets very, very frustrating, but if you really like try and develop yourself, and for example, with actuarial science, we have exams that we have to take. So when I didn't have internship opportunities, I was studying for those exams so that I could, be more, have more to offer in the next internship opportunity. And I feel like just constantly trying to develop yourself, constantly trying to like learn more, and yeah, like better yourself really goes a long way. And they really are companies looking for international, people and willing to help international people. So it's not impossible, and yeah, just keep trying and don't get frustrated and give up. So yeah.
I would quickly pitch in to AO's point. One important thing that needs to be understood is not to apply to Lockheed Martins like I did, because there are some companies which will not sponsor international students. So that's a strong advice. Know what you can, the ground that you can play in. And second, I would say, looking at our ancestors from the previous batches, the effects of pandemic are slowly receding away. So I see a lot of opportunities in the market with the career fairs which are happening at the business school and stuff. So I strongly recommend work hard, and there are enough opportunities in the market, and they will increase moving forward. Best of luck.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. We are going to move into the next portion of our presentation. You all are welcome to stay on the call if you'd like to listen in, but also understand if you have other items to get to, feel free to take off as well. Thank you to our panelists, and you all have a great evening. And with that, I am going to turn over the presentation